Hello, my name is Tim Ryan. Welcome to the Tim and Jen Show. I am here with my amazing co-host, better half, wife, business partner, best friend.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Jimenez Ryan. Babe, you're getting that one down now. Better
I've
half.
gotta earn
Why?
the brownie points. No, you are my best friend. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You're an amazing wife. Just life rocks with you. It really does.
You. Sometimes I feel that we misuse that word "I love you" a lot. Like people, "I love you," or like, "Hi, how are you? I'm good." Like, really, have you ever really tried to say like how you really are? And like, I said like a lot right now, but I really do love you.
I know.
I'm so in love with you, and I know you're in love with me.
Yeah, and we could do a whole show on that. Because that's a whole nother thing. But anyhow, we've been in Florida for a while now.
Okay, so when we first got to Florida, so we've been coming back and forth, and we've flown and whatnot. And then I had like 4 or 5 months I didn't fly because of COVID, and we wanted to get our vaccines. And
we have gotten both of our vaccines.
And I gotta tell you, once we got to Florida, I was like, do I have to wear the mask everywhere? Like, and it's so different. I feel that we were so well trained in Los Angeles during lockdown that I take it so seriously till this day. What are, the precautions and the 6 feet away. And, we're in a state that like they don't.
It's a wild west here. I mean, you can go to Walmart or Best Buy and you have to wear a mask going into a store, but then you can go into a restaurant and
but some people don't even have masks on at stores. Anyway, to each its own in the sense of I just don't want to get it again. And I don't want to get anyone. I feel that we were very well trained.
Well, we were. And I must say the way Los Angeles did the vaccines compared to Florida's a third world country, the way they've been doing the vaccine process.
Took your parents forever.
Yeah, it took them, and they're down. My dad's 80, my mom's 78. They're in the Florida Keys, and they had to drive 3 hours up to Homestead, Florida, to get their vaccination. But anyhow, things are different. Hopefully, more people will be getting vaccinated. Hopefully, life can start coming back to normal. But it hasn't been. And one of the phrases you keyed about a year ago was a pandemic within a pandemic. And our next guest, when I first started doing what I do with my foundation and working in treatment, there was a treatment center, Rosecrans, that 2 of my children, Nick, unfortunately, who passed away, nothing to do with Rosecrans, and Tanner had both went there, and they're a phenomenal program. But there was this gentleman, Matt Quinn, who worked for Rosecrans, but was very, just didn't know who I am, what I do. And he actually came to the treatment center I had helped open and got to know me, and our friendship flourished.
Yes.
It truly flourished. And our next guest is a clinician by trade, does business development for Rosecrans, specializes in adolescents. Let's welcome Matt Quinn, my friend of the show. Hey, Matt, our friend.
Everybody. Good. Thanks for having me. Good.
Thank you so much for doing the show, and thank you for coming on. But also, thank you for being a really good friend to my husband and to me as well. I heard about your name for a while, and then we met, and it was like love at first sight on friendship level. And we respect you immensely.
Well,
and
he's a mentor too, and whether he knows it or not, I know a lot about addiction and recovery because I've lived it, and I use my trials and tribulations. But I want to emphasize this: I am not a clinician. I don't talk clinical. I mean, I could say things, but there's a difference between a person like me who's in recovery doing an intervention versus someone that has a clinical background, and Matt has a true clinical background. So you're a mentor to me in that sense, Matt, because you've given me a lot of guidance and direction, and I thank you for that. So out of the gate, what's a little bit about your background, your education, what you do for a living?
Yeah, so, and just as a quick side note before I jump into that stuff, it's along the lines of what you were saying, Tim. It's been great over the past 5 years or so to see you grow in your recovery. Jen, you and I are still getting to know each other, but really, when we first started getting to know each other, I was kind of feeling things out, and it's been great to kind of see you grow and help all the people you help. It's been great to kind of see from a little bit of a distance. But anyway, so
Thank you.
In terms of my background, as you'd imagine, being in counseling and therapy, a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in psychology, clinical psychology, and then it's just years and years of cutting my teeth and working, for the first 10 to 15 years of my career. Really, a lot of it was working a lot with adolescents. That's kind of my lane, most of which had substance abuse, mental health issues. So, as I transition more into kind of a community relations, outreach, marketing role, I still hold that passion for teenagers and feel like I have the years and years of experience to be able to speak from when I'm talking to parents or doing parent presentations or working with all of the different referral sources that Rosecrans works with. It's nice to pull on that experience and be able to utilize that when you feel like a parent needs to hear this or a kid needs to hear that. You could go through that whole Rolodex of the hundreds of kids and hundreds of families that you work with and pull out those specific bullet points that family or that teen might need to get them into treatment or move them to consider recovery a little bit more seriously. So it's been great.
Sorry, I'm going to say something
ahead.
first. We both have many questions to ask.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for doing what you do, because we need more people like you doing this.
I could never get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. My ADHD, I can't take the focus to study. I'm only joking. I probably could, but that ship has sailed.
But I think that, it's so important, because right now we're within a pandemic, and Rosecrans, one of the oldest treatment centers out there, and beautiful, because I toured it, unbelievably beautiful. And they have it so down packed. It's not like everyone goes into the treatment, they're all together. There's different sections. There's for adolescents, there's people,
they have a whole campus for the adolescent specific, and I'll have Matt elaborate it on a little. I want to take it a step back though first, because
wait, I wasn't done with my question.
I know, but go ahead.
Sorry. So within a pandemic happening, how has it changed for teenagers or the loved ones of teenagers right now, or enhanced, or?
Don't answer that yet, because what I wanted to say is there's 35,000 treatment centers in the United States of America, with for-profit, not-for-profit, faith-based, Christian-based. Jennifer and I speak nationwide, internationally. We do hundreds of interventions every year. I want people to understand Rosecrans in the Midwest is one of the only treatment centers that we will refer clients to. They have one of the best adolescents. They're my go-to program. They have one of the best adolescent programs in the country, and we will not refer people to any program. We don't work for a treatment center, but we will not refer anyone to Matt or whoever unless we've been there. And two of my children have went through this program. So I've worked with the family groups on the weekends. I know this like the back of my hand, but go ahead, back to your question, Jen.
So with this pandemic, within a pandemic happening, what have you seen change? For teenagers, have you seen more kids coming in with the parents? Has it enhanced?
What's enhanced?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is what we're seeing. There's kind of this convergence of mental health challenges and substance abuse challenges, right? Which is always the case when you see a teen adult that's developing this issue. There's always that convergence of the growing substance use issue and then the underlying mental health issues, right? And so what we're seeing in this pandemic with teens is that the isolation, the boredom, the lack of structure. You wouldn't believe, especially mental health wise, that the kids that we're seeing are kids that Rosecrans, myself, that we've never seen before. We're talking about state athlete. We're talking about high achieving state athletes that typically we haven't usually seen those types of students, but because of their structure has been taken away, so much of their identity is tied into their academics, their their sports, the anxiety level and depression around that, their identities kind of all have been shaken up. And so we've seen with the mental health component of what we do, I know a lot of it is substance use, but we also do mental health within our residential facility. It's really been pronounced in terms of the mental health component. The substance use has been really interesting because it seems like there's been two tracks to it. One is the silver lining a lot of this is that you have a lot of teenagers out there that haven't had the social opportunities to start to experiment. So there is some good news in terms of COVID has kind of stopped, I think, a lot of kids from starting to experiment.
Right.
But the problem is with the kids that were already walking down that path.
Yeah.
For most of them, a lot of them, it's gotten worse because they maybe started to experiment, but then they realized, oh, wait a minute, if I'm bored, I can get high. If I'm feeling isolated and I start to get sad about that, I can numb that with marijuana, right? If I don't have structure, I can. So they very quickly started to learn self-medication, and it really started to accelerate the mental health issues. And so for the kids at Rosecrans that are more kind of moderate to severe in their problem, we really saw COVID accelerate the mental health and substance use issues because of this self-medication and this kind of just nasty combination of isolation and lack of structure.
You know, it's interesting because last week I read an article talking about the biggest issue for teens and young adults today is loneliness.
Well, yeah. And so I stay up late at night. Tim goes to bed earlier than I do. So I research a lot of things. And one of the things I was reading that they said, who has this pandemic affected the most? It's not seniors, it's young adults. And I was like floored when I read that.
But when you go back to, we started hearing about old timers, 20, 30, 40, 50 years sober, relapsing. And the reason that it's just what you're talking about, Matt. They got up every morning, they went and had their breakfast. They did their 10 a.m. 12-step meeting or their noon meeting and went and had coffee with the boys or girls. And they had their routines. And when that carpet was pulled out, they're left with themselves by themselves to their own thoughts, and they're picking up. And what you're talking about with the adolescents here, whether they're the valedictorian, the top, academically, or the top athletes, they don't have that structure anymore, or they're having to do class through a Zoom meeting. It's out the door. And, the mental health is through the roof. And it's interesting what you said about the substance abuse. See, I learn from you every time we talk because I didn't look at the correlation of the younger kids that can't go to a party or high school due to COVID while they're not experimenting with weed or pills or alcohol or whatever. It's probably harder for the ones, because one of the things you speak on too is vaping and tobacco and the dangers of that. And people think their kids are smoking a jewel and they're smoking THC in it. But that's an interesting revelation. But what's the difference between like an adolescent program versus an adult treatment program?
Yeah. So, for instance, our residential treatment, in terms of looking at some of the distinctions there. Now, as one thing that might be obvious with the teen program is you're going to have a heavy schooling component, right? Because a lot of the times they're going to be there during the school year. So we, for instance, have a built-in wing at our facility where they're in school on average 2 hours a day, and we're collaborating with their homeschool because we don't want them. It's already stressful enough for them to be getting pulled from school, right?
Yeah.
And then having to, after 30 or 45 days, go back to school. So they're going to probably be a little bit behind, but we want to try to minimize how much additional stress is coming on by that. So we're going to really work actively with the homeschool. So that would be one thing that might be obvious, but probably the biggest thing, especially with Rosecrans, is just our level of experiential therapies. Teens are, and this is a lot of this from my own experience, if you just try to sit down and talk to them, even a teen that's very engaging and a good listener, a good conversationalist, after an hour or so, if you just keep talking at them, with them, groups, individual, you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them pretty quickly. And so we'll do plenty of process groups, educational groups, introduction to 12-step and dialectical, all these great skills that good programs will do. But then after an hour of that, we'll have them go out to our Japanese garden and do a guided guided meditation or our ropes course. So, or we'll have them go to our gym and play there, or, you know, our conservatory where we have them grow, you know, grow plants, and always kind of make a joke, not those kinds of plants. And
No,
the kids always, they
want
get
to
a laugh
talk
out of that one.
I want to talk to you about that. I call it your horticulture wing because, and I'm very open with my children. When my son Tanner was at Rosecrans, when he was 17 years old, one of the things that he was so happy about, he left with 5 different plants that he grew there. And I can remember his mother and I are obviously divorced and we're friends, but I can remember his mom calling me and saying, I don't know what happened with Tanner this time, but he's in the backyard planting these flowers and these plants and taking care of them. And it's teaching, that's just one of the aspects of it, teaching them to love and care about something and nurture it like they need to be doing to themselves, you know, eating healthy, working out, positive friends, drinking water, you know, not sitting in front of a video game. But that was one of the, and this isn't some little here, it's a whole beautiful area. But talk about the garden, the Zen garden and the koi pond, and what's the philosophy behind that garden? Because Rosecrans, I think, brought someone in from Japan to design it.
Yeah, we actually had an authentic designer of Japanese gardens. There's actually in Rockford, where the facility is, there's a nursery where they have a specialist there. His name's escaping me, that actually is certified in being able to create Japanese gardens. So he was kind enough to come in where it is an authentic Japanese garden, down to the water feature being at the centerpiece of it, and the reliance on warmer colors, a lot of green, versus like an English garden where you have, and there's a whole psychology behind it too, because if you think about the teens that come to us, a lot of times they're very much on edge. They might be dealing with physical and mental withdrawal. They're very, very tense. And so we want those soothing, that green is very soothing, versus psychologically, a lot of colors, they look beautiful, but they can kind of enhance that already high level of anxiety and excitement. So, you know, there's all kinds of other pieces to it. There's 12 tiny little waterfalls that lead into the main water area to parallel with the 12 steps. There's a big, long, beautiful bridge that goes over the main koi pond, where when kids finish, there's a ceremony they'll do at the end where they'll ring a bell.
Go ring the gong.
Yeah, and then they walk across the bridge, and it's meant to symbolize kind of letting go of, you know, aspects of that past life and those behaviors, and transitioning into, you know, a new way of living. So there's just so many, and just the scenery itself is so ideal for journaling and mindfulness, and you know, just walking around, or so many of these kids, as you imagine, they have bad days, they want to bolt, right? And sometimes they do on rare occasion. And so it's so helpful with our staff to be able to walk with them and say, hey, come on, let's do a full loop. You know, let's do a full loop through the garden. And having that soothing area around, you know, and usually it's an argument they got into with, you know, one of their you know, unit mates or a staff said something that hit a little close to home, or whatever the case may be. So there's so many different layers to why it's so great to have that little 5-acre Japanese garden that we have in the back. It's so, and you won't see that anywhere. It's such a great little unique feature that we have.
Yeah, you won't see it anywhere. And I'm telling you, for anyone that's listening, you can go to Rosecrans website, and at the end we'll give out all the information and how to contact them. But you can go look at the pictures. This is a gorgeous facility, and they truly care about the kids. And I've had 2 of my children through there, and I believe in it. But let's get to some real talk here. I mean, because what's happening, Matt, is you got a lot of parents out here that are either homeschooling or a lot of divorced parents. Today, 50% of America's divorced. Kids might be with a single parent or not, but what do we do if parents think they're adolescent? Doesn't need to just be adolescence, young kid is struggling. What do you suggest they do? I mean,
reach out, you know, find, you know, whether that's us, you know, it doesn't have to be just a teen that needs me. I can't tell you how often on a daily basis I have a parent, a school social worker. I think all of us want to help you guys. whoever it might be, let's utilize us, Rosecrans. I think that the biggest thing isn't who to reach out to, because I think most of us, almost all of us in this field, we want to get people to the right spot. We're not so, right. And that's what I love about Rosecrans is we're not so much, of course, we want clients in our facilities, but all of our front door, our intake assessment, it all revolves around getting good information to be able to get them where they need to go, right? And so it's the courage to, and I think this is true with most clinicians like myself, it's about reaching out to anybody. Because usually if you reach out to 1, 2, 3 people, somebody's going to know the right person to get you lined up with the services that you need. And so I think the bigger hurdle is just the reaching out, whether that's to me or you guys or anybody else, and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. But that's where the courage is, because there's so much shame, there's so much what did we do wrong, and so much of the time I spend with parents is reassuring them you're not alone through this. You didn't do anything wrong. There's so many components that you have to reassure them that it's okay. It's okay to ask for all help. We all need help sometimes.
I love what you're saying with that. What are, when I get emails and people reaching out to me, they're like, well, what are some of the signs, or, what should I do? Or how do I know that they're they have a problem?
Because we get a lot of parents that say, oh, my kid's just smoking weed. Yeah. But they're calling for help, but then they want to minimize it and say, well, they're just smoking weed. And the first thing I'll say to the parents is, let me explain that the weed today versus the weed I grew up smoking 30 years ago is not the same. And I use this analogy, and Jennifer, you and I use this when we speak in high schools and middle schools and colleges is, two 16-year-olds are at a party. They're smoking some of this high-grade weed. Their inhibitions are dropped. That's when they try ecstasy or cocaine or heroin, and God forbid it's laced with fentanyl, they're dead. If they weren't smoking the weed in the first place, they would have never experimented with these other things. But one thing Jenn will emphasize is, what is so wrong with you that you need to alter your mind in the first place? What's really the underlying causes and conditions? But what do you say to that parent?
Yeah, I mean, and I know you guys had Chris Herron on recently, and one of the biggest takeaways that I've had in interactions with him and watching him is that is kind of the why, and being self-assured enough and confident enough, and really building that is such an important part of this work. I mean, I know I talk so much about when I talk about marijuana and brain development, and I could go on, and there's so much good research out there on marijuana, and it does what it does to the teen brain. But that's a piece that so many adults now miss, is the apples and oranges comparison between a teenager doing all of that stuff and an adult. Not that it's okay or necessarily good that an adult's doing it, but it's an apples and orange comparison in terms of what it's doing to their brain functioning and their brain development. And then you have all of the research out there about the younger you start. If you're in that 12 to 14-year-old age range, the research says you're almost in a 50% risk category of progressing to a more severe substance use issue. And every year that goes by, that risk goes down and down and down. And that's tied directly into brain development. But so much of it is not just that piece, but also how do we, as parents, as treatment centers, how do we build kids up where they feel, and this is with my own kids, my youngest is 12. So I'm, so much of what I talk about with them is okay, you don't need this because you're good enough as you are. And I know that's a challenge, but it's important that be a part of it, is building them up where they don't feel like that they need it in order to be self-assured, confident in who they are. It's not easy.
And that's so important to know, to have a parent or a person who is an adult telling a teenager, a young adult, you are good enough right
just
now. Just where you are, and when I look back and I've done, all the work I've done on myself, yes, early childhood, but then the teenage years, like when we go to school, when we used to pre-pandemic, go to schools and speak from 11 years old to 18-year-olds, like that's where it all starts, right? You just want to be cool like your friends, or you feel like you're being bullied, or you want to fit in, or you do something, and then you take that drink, and then, you take the next drink, you smoke this, you do that. I mean, and then all of a sudden you're hooked. And all those dreams you once had, they're all gone.
Well, and on top of that, a lot of it has, we didn't have social media growing up. The bullying is through the roof today. These kids using all these filters, trying to look perfect. There is no perfect. Everybody has imperfections. But those all are compiled because pre-COVID, we were doing a number of speaking events, and Matt, me and you have done a number of events together. And I hope that we can do that. And I can tell you what was crazy. We did Wheaton North High School.
Yep.
And after the event, we had tables set up. There was 100, 150 parents waiting in line to talk with Matt, to talk with us. And I can specifically remember this parent coming up and they start talking about their adolescent. I said, you see that guy right there? He's the expert. Go talk to him. A lot of times, though, the parents don't want to hear the truth. And it's even hard. I guess this is a barrier I'd like us to figure out how the hell to get over. We can go speak in all the schools. You can go speak. But what's hard is getting the parents to come out and get educated. Not my child. We live in a good town.
Not my city, not my block. But you know what? It is your block. It is your child. It is your city. I mean, it's happening over and over and more than ever before. Another thing that I feel, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that like kids need their parents. They don't need a parent to be their friend. And I remember like from the schools that I've spoken at, I've had little girls, 11 years old, 16-year-olds, boys, teenage boys reaching out to me going, you know what? I felt like you and Tim heard me. That it's like they feel like they're being heard, like what you're saying, not talked to, but they're not being talked at, but being talked with. Which is a difference, and communicating, and then the parent, like that denial thing that you're saying, Tim, like it happens over and over and time again.
Yeah. And the parents, a lot of times they have the best intentions. They want their kid to be accepted and be popular, not because necessarily they have to be popular, but they just want their kid to fit in, and that makes them, maybe allows them to compromise a little bit here. Or, maybe they think back when they were in high school, maybe they drank or did these things. Well, I did it, I turned out okay. They give a little bit here. And so it's very rarely a malicious type of parenting, but it could be easy for something that starts small to grow into something larger if you don't set, and this, Jen, to your point about parenting being parents and not friends, that's what made me think of this. It's easy to start down that road with the messaging around this. If it's too much, if you think, it's okay, it's not a big deal, kids will drink, kids will do that. And nowadays with COVID and then being stuck inside and all of these things, I think it's even easier for parents, especially what I'm worried about as the world returns to kind of a different type of normal and we all kind of come out from the woodwork. I worry about parents saying to themselves, and understandably so, my kid's been trapped for a year. Let them go. Let them have their fun. They gotta make up some time. And I worry about kids thinking this way too, and starting down this road. And I'm anticipating this already and how to plan around this in terms of like that they're almost owed more leash. They're almost owed more leash. Given what's happened. And in some ways that's fair, but I think with substance use, that sense of giving more leash, like what's happened with screens, like it's all, how do we keep kids off of screens for the past year? You can't, right? You have to, you have to be more permissive. And I'm worried that parents are going to be more permissive because they feel bad that their kids have been stuck inside, and they should feel bad. I feel bad for my kids that have been stuck inside, but what that might turn into in terms of kids just kind of going a little hog wild, I'm worried how that might accelerate all this.
I agree, because one of the things, and I'm not, the cell phone here, a lot of parents aren't into their kids' technology. So they could be sitting in their bedroom, mom comes in to look and, I'm doing my schoolwork, but they're on the dark web, they're on pornography sites, whatever. Parents need to be also educated about what's in their kids' technology. Don't let them use it at night when you're sleeping. But those are the simple things that people don't know about that open the door for kids to be getting weed or the doctor recently whose son bought, pills on Snapchat and died. It was fentanyl. And, you know, it's not going to happen to my kid. Matt, between the three of us, we can't tell you how many adolescents we've worked with, we've run across that aren't here anymore because the family said, well, it won't happen to us. And it does.
Right. And you know, and that's why parents really, you know, we don't want them feeling like they have to stalk their kids' technology, but there's a middle ground. It's not that you're either checking your kid's phone every night or you're not at all. Let's find a middle ground that's reasonable where you can monitor it. Find a way to monitor it and make sure, especially if you're, you know, I call this mom tuition. No offense to dads like us, Tim, but you know, trust your intuition. If you're seeing stuff, if you're seeing behaviors that are above and beyond what we're already seeing with COVID, don't be afraid to. I mean, so many parents out there are afraid, and I get it, but you know, in terms of maybe doing a room search or checking their kid's phone, like I always tell parents, err on the side a little bit of paranoia, err on the side of being a little bit nuts, err on the side of being a little bit overcautious versus the other way. I can't tell you how many times I've said that when parents are like, gosh, I feel like I'm just being crazy. I'm like, wouldn't you rather find something out that you didn't want to know than not find it out and have it turn into an OD or a car accident because somebody was, you know, intoxicated or somebody died? Don't be afraid to be a little paranoid as a parent. Don't be afraid. So, again, we're going back to Jen's point about not feeling like you need to be a friend, be a parent first.
Absolutely. And it's tough because Jenn and I have done a lot of speaking events, and, you know, at night we'll do with the families, and you'll have a mother say, yeah, my 16-year-old daughter's my best friend. No, she's not.
She shouldn't be.
She's your damn daughter. When she maybe gets out of high school and after the service or college and is on her own, then she can be your best friend, but not until then, because you skew that line. Matt, what about for the families that are listening to us on a podcast out there, and they live in Nebraska, or they live in New Jersey or Florida or New York or California? Can their loved ones go to Rosecrans?
Absolutely. We'll arrange for all of the transportation. We'll certainly want to right up front get that phone screening, that phone assessment done. We always want to make sure that we're going to be the best fit, right? Going back to my point earlier, there's a chance that there might be something closer, more local, outpatient, that might be a better fit. We're going to make sure that we're a good fit. We're not just flying people in just to fill we're a nonprofit agency that's mission driven. We're not just trying to fill beds. That's not how we work. So we're going to make sure it's a good fit, but then we'll coordinate all the travel, the flying, the transportation. That happens on a very regular basis with us, where we're bringing people in from out of state that might need that longer stay that we specialize in.
So Jennifer talks about this a lot. I feel like I'm speaking for her.
I'm like wondering what.
But she'll say, you know what? Some people don't need to go to inpatient treatment. And you just hit the nail on the head. You know what? Maybe they need outpatient first. Maybe they need to just come see me as a therapist or see a therapist, and then we can see, and if this and this and this happens, well, then they can go. I want families to know that just because there might be smoking some weed or there's some issues doesn't mean they need to go to inpatient residential out of the gate. So I talk about that a little bit, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why that really good assessment up front is so important. I mean, you'd think after doing this for 15, 20 years, like I have, that I would be able to, after talking to a kid for 15 minutes, that I would know exactly what they need and what's going to happen over the next 6 months. I am constantly surprised by how resilient some kids can be. Just recently, you know, I was thinking to myself, okay, this is where he went to Rosecrans, was there for a few days, and basically left against medical advice. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, we're going to see him again in 2 weeks or 4. And he's proven to everybody. Sometimes you need to utilize that teenage, that teen angst and work with it, and turn it into motivation, and turn it into, I'm going to show all you that I can do this, that I can prove you wrong. I mean, you want to do it for yourself, but sometimes with teens, tapping into a little bit of the I'm going to prove you wrong isn't necessarily such a bad thing. I've been wrong so many times about, what I thought was going to happen, that I think you have to be open-minded about what each individual kid might need, and how that assessment process changes day to day, where on one day it might look like, they need residential, and then the next day residential. If it's day after day, it looks like they need residential. They probably do, but the teenage brain flip-flops so often. One day they're like, okay, I'm going to get my life together, I'm never going to use again. The next day I'm like, I'm going to use all day, I can't take this anymore. And so you have to be able to reassess every single day and be flexible with that. Because if you think, okay, this is Johnny, this is his path, then you don't get teens. They are so and that's the brain. Their brain is still just figuring things out, that every day is going to be a different adventure, a different ride.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Johnny or Susie, adolescent, 16, goes to Rosecrans. What do you recommend the parents or the family do while their loved one's in treatment?
A few things. That was a nice softball you threw me, Tim. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's what we do. I mean, we all know that, addiction, substance use disorder, it's especially with teens, it is almost always a family systems challenge. I can't think of a single example where it was just the teen in isolation, throughout their upbringing, that everything within the family, within the marriage, within the family, with the siblings, that everything there was perfectly healthy, on track. There were always things, little, big, or small, within the family dynamic that where the dance was happening both ways.
Right.
Either both sides were equal dancing partners, or one was dancing a little more actively and the other person was just doing a little bit of the, but it goes both ways. So to your point, if parents think that they're not part of this, or they don't need, if they think it's like a radiator change, they're going to just send their kid into the mechanic and get that new radiator. But that's just not how this works. The parents need to know, what they may be doing in the home that could be dancing this dance and contributing to that. Are they enabling? Are they are they too aggressive in their parenting? Too much yelling, screaming, putting down, those types of things. Did they have their own mental health issues that they need to deal with?
It's a big one.
Yeah, and we want them getting their own therapy. There's a lot of things we want them. There's a lot of things we want them getting. We were waiting to hear that. Yeah, their own therapy, their own Families Anonymous or Al-Anon, we're there with other parents that are dealing with the same challenges. We want them doing our family weekend, which you could speak to how great that is, where they're getting a full weekend. We want them doing the weekly family sessions with our primary counselors and the teen, and really trying to dig into some of this. And a lot of times there is a direct correlation between how much of that the parents and family does and how good the kid does. It's not just, it's half about the kid and how they do in treatment, how they do. The other half of the equation is the family, and how healthy are they getting? How much support are they getting? What are they doing to make themselves healthier?
As an adult who went to treatment in my late 20s, I am so glad my family did family group and did therapy and did all the things they needed to do, because my mom was no longer co-signing my BS, and I was left with myself, and that meant I needed to do work because my game was over. And I can only imagine for a teenager or a young adult, how important it is for parents to be involved. And I
want to chime in really quick just on Rosecrans' family program. Now, when Tanner went through, I was about 5 years sober. I'm over 8 years sober now, and I know a lot. So I went to the family weekend, and I'm like, all right, I'll know how to answer every question here because I'm Tim Ryan. And it was one of the most educational programs I ever sat in on. And I could interject and help a lot, but there was a lot I didn't know and a lot I learned from that. And any family that's listening, if you put a loved one whether they're an adolescent or adult, please get involved. Get yourself the therapy. Get involved with the family weekends, because once the family gets better, the person struggling gets better.
And be open to be teachable, because the more you allow that to happen, the more you learn, and the more you realize, okay, well, I was doing my best that I could, but now I can do it this way.
So you at 15 years sober, over 15 years sober, still have a sponsor. You still have a therapist. When I came up and you were getting ready for this podcast, what were you listening to on your phone?
Codependent No More.
Codependent No More.
And I said to Tim, he came in and I was like, I gotta tell you something, babe. This is rubbing me the wrong way. And he's like, what? And I go,
not from my standpoint.
I go, it's rubbing me the wrong way because it made me realize things about like even my childhood stuff, that like the codependency that I come from, like, and the things that I've worked on myself a lot. And I continuously work on myself, but to hear certain things and I go, oh, wow, that reminded me of this, you know, of childhood or this or adulthood or, you know, or, oh, this is the things that no longer serve me anymore. Like I need to work on those things, you know, and it's something that I'm going to pay more attention to and work out in therapy. Like, you know, and because I'm sober doesn't mean I have all the answers. Because I'm a codependent in recovery of that as well doesn't mean I have all the answers. It means I have to work a little deeper. You know, I constantly have to work deeper to break.
It's about really what I've noticed, especially with parents, it's about blind spots. It's not about intent. I know I said this already, but I think sometimes it's a mistake to think that the teens that we're working with, that their parents, that the parents are just completely on Mars. And it's not, it's about what they're just, it's just what they're not seeing. It's not so much about, they love their kids just as much as anybody, but they just aren't seeing dynamics that are so rooted. A lot of these are dynamics that are generation after generation that they grew up witnessing, that then they are just playing out the same way, that they don't realize is unhealthy in a way that's contributing to this. They just need those blinders taken off.
Right.
Tim, think about everything that you've learned in recovery, and you walk into that meeting and you learn a lot. Imagine what that's like for these parents that don't know anything about recovery or anything about their own, their own blind spots. And to me, it's so just about opening up that vision so that they can really see what's going on.
And it's overwhelming for parents too. And I've got to commend you, Matt, for your calm nature and demeanor, the way you're able to convey and work with families and people in the industry. You have a gift with what you do, and don't ever forget that.
Oh, thank you. But I think it does require a level of, and this is, to your strength, it requires a level of bluntness sometimes. And I've gotten a little more direct and a little more blunt, as I've moved along, because I think sometimes you have to respectfully call a spade a spade. And I think if you could respectfully call a spade, you're doing good work, especially with treatment and recovery, because sometimes you just have to be honest with people, because a lot of times everybody else in their lives have been dancing around it and have been afraid to tell them what they need to hear. And sometimes they need somebody to say, hey, listen, this is the truth. Is going to head if you don't want to deal with it. This is what I'm seeing. You're codependent right now. You're enabling your kid. I know you have the best intent, and generally I've noticed it works well. If framed the right way and done in the right tone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have another question to ask you: is how can people access or navigate for help? Yeah.
Well, certainly they could, and Tim, maybe you could speak to some of the work you do around that too. But, for us, Rosecrans.org, our website, the thing about Google, is you have to be careful, because if you're going to Google treatment centers and those types of things, for instance, there's a lot of, and I'm not here to speak poorly of other treatment centers or other recovery programs, but you have to realize that not everybody on Google is on equal footing. There will be organizations that will pay a lot of money to have their treatment center come up to the top. And that's not to say it's a bad treatment center, but I'm just saying, don't assume because it's at the top or it's on the first page that means it's the best.
Absolutely.
You really have to do your research and figure out, dig into a few pages, ask professionals that you respect, ask your physician. because if you just go by the ones that are on the first page and think, well, those must be the most searched, so they must be the best, that could be dangerous, you know, so you have to really do your research.
Yeah, and make sure you go to the Rosecrans website, and you're key on that. You know, anytime somebody calls us for help, I can say, here's 3 or 4 places. You know, they're an adolescent, whatever. They're in the Midwest. Here's Rosecrans, but ask to talk to a clinician. Just don't, you know, ask. You can talk, and people are afraid to ask these questions. You know, I can't tell you how many people I've sent your way, Matt. And you'll say, you know what, they're not a fit for us, but we referred them here. Or I sent this person here. That's what it's about. But Rosecrans has been around over 100 years.
That just speaks
volumes. And they have intensive outpatients all over the Midwest. So don't think that their main headquarters in Rockford, Illinois is it. They have locations in Wisconsin, Iowa. All over Illinois. Where else?
Yep, southern central Illinois, down in Champaign, Wisconsin, Iowa. You know, both sides of IS. So we are regional. We're not national, but at the same time, in that Midwest region, you know, we really feel like that we're a gold standard when it comes to, particularly with higher levels of substance use treatment. And something I wanted to go back to toward the beginning that you mentioned, Tim, was in terms of your experience with Rosecrans. I think, you know, for me, I haven't worked my whole career at Rosecrans. I came to Rosecrans because for 8 years, I led an IOP where, as you would imagine, there were a good percentage of those teens that needed a higher level than what our outpatient, the outpatient I was doing, what that could provide. And so there were 2 or 3 that I would really lean on as being kind of my go-tos. And the ones that would come back from Rosecrans, it honestly got to the point where I started to get self-conscious about my own work at times, because they would come back, I thought there was something in the water. They would have like with Tanner, they would have the 12 steps memorized. They'd be coming back to my group with a sponsor already and all of their meetings picked out and just completely transformed. So when I saw that time after for 8 years, I mean, you know, for me, the credibility within the organization was built years and years for me before I ever came. And so for me to be able to advocate for Rosecrans has been easy, because I know in my heart and in my head that the quality is as good as it gets. Absolutely.
Absolutely. You know, Matt, we're coming to the end of the show here, but we want to thank you for coming on. And you're a game changer, because addiction starts in mental health at such a young age, and that there's programs out there that are truly helping the youth of America. And of course, you help the adults as well. You've helped my family. You know my son, Tanner, and I thank you for that. I thank you for everything you've done for the community. We look forward to doing more in the future. If you want to check out Rosecrans, rosecrans.org. If not, you can go to dopetohope.com or call us at 844-611-HOPE. We will direct you to Matt. I'll give you his personal cell phone number. We'll direct you to Rosecrans.
If people want to get a hold of you, Matt.
How can people reach you if they want to reach you, Matt?
Probably the easiest way would just be Quinn, so just MQUINN, my first initial last name, at rosecrans.org, ROSECRANCE.org. You'd be amazed how many different spellings of Rosecrans I've heard. Some people throw a T in there, they throw a Z. So I always like to spell it anytime I have an opportunity, just to get it right.
Good.
Yeah. Well, we love you. We appreciate you. We thank you so very much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks. This is
and next time we're in Illinois, we will get together and have lunch.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, good. Thank you, Matt Quinn. Thank you, Rosecrans. Thank you, Lux Media.
Rosecrans. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Lux Media. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Thanks so much. We love you and we honor you.
Have an amazing week. This is Tim and Jen. We're signing off. Later. We want to talk to you about Clean Cause, better caffeine. What's in the can? Our organic, sparkling Herba Mate is a premium pick-me-up that won't let you down. Every can of Clean Cause contains 160 milligrams of better caffeine, and each sip supports recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. 50% of the profits go to assist people into sober living. Check out cleancause.com.
Hope. At Rosecrans, it's more than a wish. Hope has power. As the proven behavioral health leader in the Midwest, no other program offers our depth of experience and hope here at Rosecrans. And when someone you love struggles with substance abuse and mental illness, hope plays an important part in recovery. Life's got bigger plans for you. We should know. We're the most trusted name in treatment and the best choice for those who dare to hope. Visit us at rosecrans.org. Life's waiting.
Seaside Palm Beach is an executive luxury addiction treatment center located in Palm Beach, Florida. Our private clients come from all over the world, including business executives, professional athletes, celebrities, and more. Seaside Palm Beach offers first-class amenities and high-end accommodations, including a gourmet culinary experience, ocean views, pet-friendly facilities, and access to cell phones and laptops during your stay. If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, please call us at 877-959-5053. Again, that number is 877-959-5053.
Now, glutathione is a big word, but it's the body's own master antioxidant. So it's a scavenger for free radicals, for bacteria, and what's relevant now, viruses. This is new to the marketplace. There's no other product on the market that has the ingredient NACET.
And basically NACET increases the production of that glutathione that is in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system and keep it strong. Elevated sense of well-being. Supports muscle strength and endurance. Cognitive function. Powerful liver support. Energy. Helps blood sugar regulation. Superior bioavailability of key ingredients.
One of your best defenses against COVID is a strong immune system. Taking GSH Plus as a daily supplement does all that. And now we have the product out on the marketplace.